Good evening. This right here is the official Twitter account of the U.S. White House. And on Thursday of last week, meaning exactly 1 week ago today, there was a statement released from this account at exactly 5:45 p.m. that frankly caught a lot of people off guard. Here's in fact exactly what that statement read. Quote, "When President Biden took office, millions were unemployed and there was no vaccine available. In the last 15 months, the economy has created 8.3 million jobs and the unemployment rate stands at 3.6%, the fastest decline in unemployment to start a president's term ever recorded." Now, to start with, the idea that the economy created 8.3 million jobs and that the unemployment rate declined the fastest in history is, well, a misleading claim at best, because the vast majority of those 8.3 million jobs were not created, but rather they were recovered. It was just the natural reaction to the government lifting the lockdown measures, which quite literally forced people to shut down shop and stop working. And so to lift those measures and then say that the administration helped to, quote unquote, create 8.3 million jobs is, again, misleading to say it lightly. However, that was actually a minor point because it was the first part of that statement which really was egregious. Here, let me just read it to you again. Quote, "When President Biden took office, millions were unemployed and there was no vaccine available." Now, that statement is categorically, empirically, and verifiably false. For starters, Joe Biden himself was publicly vaccinated before he assumed office. As you can see up on screen for yourself, Joe Biden received the first dose of the vaccine on December 21st of the year 2020. He then received the second dose of the vaccine on January 11th of 2021. And then only 9 days later, on January the 20th, did he assume office. Furthermore, by the time Joe Biden assumed office, the rollout of the vaccine was already in full swing, with approximately 1 million people getting the shot per day. And yet, here was once again the message that the White House sent out just 1 week ago. Quote, "When President Biden took office, millions were unemployed and there was no vaccine available." Now, no matter what your thoughts are about the vaccine, this statement was patently false. However, we are not living in the Trump administration, and therefore it appears that no one on Twitter saw the need to label that White House message as being either false or misleading. Instead, it was just left up there for the world to see. But this particular lie was just so blatant that even CNN came out. They published an article calling out the administration on it, which then subsequently led them to issue a retraction. Here's specifically what the retraction from the administration said. Quote, "We were wrong. Smashing the like button and subscribing to the Facts Matter YouTube channel is the only way to go." Now, I am of course just joking, but at the same time, it is true that smashing that like and subscribe buttons are the only ways to go. Regardless, here's what the real retraction from the White House actually said. Quote, "We previously misstated that vaccines were unavailable in January of 2021. We should have said that they were not widely available. Vaccines became available shortly before the president came into office. Since then, he's responsible for fully vaccinating over 200 million people." Which is all well and good. However, what's really worth pointing out here, in no uncertain terms, is that at this very moment, well, the White House's tweet is still up online. Despite the fact that they issued a retraction, the initial message is still there for the world to see. And wouldn't you know it, despite it being a full week later, and despite the fact that the White House themselves admitted that it was a lie, or they called it a misstatement, well, there's still no fact check below that initial tweet. It's quite frankly really amazing how that works. However, in an ironic twist of events, it might actually be the case that this tweet doesn't reach as many people as you would imagine. That's because according to an analysis that was conducted by Newsweek, they found that almost half of Joe Biden's Twitter followers are actually fake accounts. Specifically, they used an auditing tool provided by a software company called SparkToro, and using that tool, they found that, quote, 49.3% of accounts following the official POTUS Twitter account are fake followers based on an analysis of a number of factors, including location issues, default profile images, and new users. Then, in terms of what a fake follower is in regards to this analysis, well, here's how SparkToro defines it. Quote, "Accounts that are unreachable and will not see the account's tweets, either because they're spam, bots, propaganda, etc., or because they're no longer active on Twitter." Furthermore, that software company's tool also found that Joe Biden's account had more fake followers as a percentage than most other accounts. However, a couple of things to mention here, which are, for one, the POTUS account is different from the official White House account. And secondly, we here at the Epoch Times were not able to at least independently verify those numbers because we don't have access to that SparkToro tool, and so take that with just a grain of salt. But of course, this new finding from Newsweek, it comes right on the heels of Elon Musk's recent pronouncements. We discussed them in an earlier episode in which he estimated that somewhere between 20 and 90% of Twitter users are actually fake. And so again, take that for what you will. Regardless, though, circling back to the White House's claims about the vaccines, it's worth noting that, in general, the administration really should have known better than make such a false claim, because this was not the first time that they made such a false claim regarding what they inherited from the Trump administration, and then they had to walk themselves back. And as an example of what I mean by that, on January 21st of last year, meaning just literally one day after Joe Biden assumed office, CNN published this story here, citing sources from within the administration who claimed that they inherited a non-existent vaccine distribution plan and that they had to quite literally start from scratch. Here is specifically what part of that article said, and again, we're citing from anonymous sources from within the Biden administration. Quote, newly sworn-in President Joe Biden and his advisors are inheriting no coronavirus vaccine distribution plan to speak of from the Trump administration, posing a significant challenge for the new White House. Another source described the moment that it became clear that the Biden administration would have to essentially start from square one because there simply was no plan as, quote, wow, just further affirmation of complete incompetence. Then another source told CNN, quote, there is nothing for us to rework. We are going to have to build everything from scratch. However, this story turned out to be false. And the reason that we know it's not true is because just several hours after this article was published in CNN, well, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was asked about it during a White House press briefing, and here's what he said. And just to note, I sped up the clip just a little bit so we can get through it faster.
Is the Biden administration starting from scratch with the vaccine distribution effort, or are you picking up where the Trump administration left off?
No, I mean, we certainly are not starting from scratch because there is activity going on in the distribution. We're coming in with fresh ideas, but also some ideas that were not bad ideas with the previous administration. You can't say it was absolutely not usable at all. So we are continuing, but you're going to see a real ramping up.
However, despite the fact that Dr. Fauci pretty much destroyed this narrative, well, the Biden administration continued to push it. That's because just 3 days after that press briefing with Dr. Fauci, well, the White House Chief of Staff, Mr. Ron Klain, he went on MSNBC and he basically reiterated the same claims.
The process to distribute the vaccine, particularly outside of nursing homes and hospitals, out into the community as a whole, did not really exist when we came into the White House.
However, again, despite what you think about the vaccine itself, that claim that was made by the White House Chief of Staff was patently not true. That's because the CDC put out the COVID-19 vaccination program interim playbook for different jurisdictions all the way back in September of 2020. That was even before the presidential election. That particular manual, it covered everything from vaccine allocation, identifying critical populations, how to coordinate between the state and local levels, and how to set up vaccination provider training. Then, also in September of 2020, the Department of Defense, in conjunction with the Department of Health and Human Services, they released their vaccine distribution plan to the public, leading to a ramp-up period such that by the time Joe Biden assumed office, 1.6 million people were getting the vaccine every single day, and that number was increasing exponentially. And so you see, given all these facts, as well as this latest tweet from the Biden administration that we discussed earlier, the one which touts the economic recovery and also claims that there was no vaccine by the time Joe Biden assumed office, it actually reveals a longer-term political strategy, one in which this new administration criticizes President Trump for not doing enough, but then at the same time takes credit for everything that was done. Perhaps the new administration's Disinformation Governance Board can get on that and call them out for these untruths, except for the fact that just yesterday, the Disinformation Governance Board, which has colloquially now been dubbed the Ministry of Truth, was actually put on an indefinite pause. And the leader of that board resigned. Specifically, just 3 short weeks after that new agency was set up, well, there was an announcement from the Department of Homeland Security saying that all of the agency's work has been put on pause. Here's part of what that statement said, quote, the Disinformation Governance Board will not convene and its work will be paused, although officials will carry out critical work across several administrations to address disinformation that threatens the security of our country in the meantime. And so I guess without the government Disinformation Board, it'll have to go back to being just us, meaning the free citizens of this country, who work to figure out what's true and what's not. And you know what? Sometimes that's surprisingly easier than expected, because sometimes, just sometimes, the truth inadvertently and accidentally slips out, just like it did with Mr. George W. Bush just yesterday.
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway.
That was very cool, to say the least. If you'd like to go through any of the details of what we've discussed in today's episode, including all of my research notes and links, I'll throw all of them down into the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that if you haven't already, take a quick moment to smash that like button, as well as if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. That way you can get all this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed every single weekday. And now, sorry, what's this? It's me. Of course it's Sekur, because we use the Sekur app, which is the sponsor of today's episode, as well as an awesome email and message service provider that actually cares about your privacy. Now listen, it's no big secret that our data is being mined and remined all the time. In fact, there was a recent study that was published in the year 2020, which found that 155 million Americans, likely including you and me, have suffered some form of data breach. And frankly, that's only what's publicly known. However, all those past problems with privacy issues and data mining, well, that can be an issue of the past, because moving forward, you can use the Sekur app, which both your messages, your emails, and your phone calls can remain private. That's because they have their servers and their data centers located in Switzerland instead of in the US or China or Russia. And why does that matter? Because Switzerland has the strictest data privacy laws in the entire world, and they are not subject to the intrusive Cloud Act. Now, what I love the most about the Sekur app is that they don't collect my data, they don't mine my data, they don't mine the data and phone numbers of my friends and family. Everything is private. And best of all, at least in my opinion, this does not work with your big tech email provider just because it is not secure. And so check it out. You can head on over to Sekur.com, and if you use promo code Roman, you can get 25% off. And frankly, their rates are not even that expensive. It only starts with $5 for the messenger and $10 for the email and messenger combo. And best of all, they offer a 7-day free trial. And now I'd like to end with two notes. The first is that we here at the Epoch Times are hiring. We're hiring reporters as well as editors. If you would like to apply, please send your resume, your cover letter, as well as 3 samples of your writing over to careers@epochtimes.com. That's again, careers@epochtimes.com. And then lastly, as I mentioned on yesterday's episode, we just published an exclusive episode of Facts Matter over on Epoch TV detailing the dangers that have been discovered in regards to the spike protein. Here's a trailer for that episode. After 2 years of research and studies, the scientific understanding surrounding the danger of the spike protein has evolved quite a lot. And so while at first, when the pandemic first began, people thought that the spike protein was only there to help the virus enter human cells, and that was it. However, over time, researchers have slowly discovered that the effects of the spike protein are actually multifaceted, and that the spike is harmful to the human body in at least 8 different ways, such as by damaging the cells of our lungs, damaging our cells' mitochondria, causing general inflammation, and even by increasing the risk of blood clots. Furthermore, all this is compounded even further by the fact that, according to several new studies, the spike protein can persist in the human body for weeks or even months after a person gets vaccinated. And so today, let's explore what these potential dangers of the spike protein actually are, as well as some concrete actions that you can take in order to detoxify yourself and boost your own immune system. If you'd like to watch that episode in its glorious entirety, you can do so over on Epoch TV, which is of course our no censorship video platform. I'll throw the link, it'll be right there at the very top of the description box. And again, as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I'd love to publish it here on YouTube, but frankly, nuanced discussions like that are now welcome. Even though in that episode, everything is properly sourced, I link all the studies that I discussed down into the description box of the Epoch TV episode. Well, for some reason, things that go against the narrative, or not even go against the narrative, but that discuss things that are sensitive, well, they're not welcome here on YouTube. The algorithm will just pick out certain words and then label this episode as being misinformation and take it down, and perhaps even give this channel a strike. That is just the reality that we're living under. That's the regime of censorship that we're living under. And so that's why we have set up Epoch TV. And so I hope you check out that episode, because a lot of research went into it. Again, the link will be right there at the very top of the description box. I hope you click on it, hope you check it out. And by subscribing, you should also know that you are directly funding the journalism that we do here at the Epoch Times. Again, that link will be right there at the very top of the description box. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.